Much of the improvement in my artwork has really only come within the past like 2 or 3 years. Despite drawing since I was a kid and going to college for animation, my work never seemed quite good enough to actually get me any jobs or anything. But about 2.5 years ago, I saw a video that actually changed a lot for me. It changed how I approached my artwork, and it got me over some humps that I had been struggling with for years. It's a video by Struthless, I'm not sure how to say the name. I can't say I'm super well versed on this creator, but I've seen a handful of his videos. But the video I really want to talk about is this one. Advice for perfectionists and procrastinators, the 70% rule.
In short, it looks like this. Aim for 70%, not 100%. When I go to make a video like this, sometimes I'll ask before I make it, can I make it perfectly? And the answer's always going to be no. But if I say, can I make it to at least 70% of perfect? The answer is usually yes, which means I should make it.
Most of the time, the hardest thing is just getting started. Once you're able to get past that, things tend to become a lot easier. In my case, I had picked up life drawing again a few years ago. And adhering to something that's already scheduled and organized by someone else means all you gotta do is show up and get to work. The first hurdle becomes a non-issue. What was kind of surprising though is that I kept it up once everybody moved online. I actually got way more into it. There are a lot of other art groups, and the models will often host their own sessions as well. And at a certain point, I was doing 3 to 4 life drawing sessions a week for about 2 to 3 hours each time. But I don't think my routines would have mattered quite as much if not for the true genius behind the 70% rule.
But why does it work? The 70% rule works for 4 reasons. It lowers the barrier to entry, the law of diminishing returns, it helps you finish, and it reinforces the truth. So let's say we measure 3 people across a week. We'll call them the imperfectionist, the perfectionist, and the hyper-perfectionist. The imperfectionist makes 7 things that are pretty good. The perfectionist makes 3.5 things which are really good, and the hyper-perfectionist makes 2 things which are incredible. Now at this point you're thinking, man, just be day 3, like that person's making incredible work. But there is one more twist. Every time you execute and finish a project, you get better at making projects. And that is because of the feedback loop that people give you, and also the feedback loop that you're giving yourself as somebody who finishes projects. So the person who's made 7 things in a week, their potential is actually getting larger. And what you'll find is that 70% of a really big pie is better than 95% of a just okay pie.
Since life drawing poses are timed, I had to bypass my perfectionistic tendencies. Get as much done as I could in the time, and keep it moving, whatever state it's in. It's essentially applying the same principle within each session, but on a smaller scale. But when you're not on a timer, that's when shooting for that 70% completion rate really comes into play. Oftentimes, I would continue working on drawings after sessions, either from memory or using screenshots if they were allowed. But keeping that 70% rule in mind, I needed something to signal that I was truly done with something so that I wouldn't keep going back endlessly. At first, it was emailing my drawings. I had originally moved online with a drawing group here in the Boston area that I was attending before the lockdown. The woman who hosts asked for people to send their drawings so they could be used for promoting future classes. So once I would send the email, that was it. It was on to the next. But outside of this group, I had to use something else as the signifier. Social media. Now I gotta stress this. I only use posting as a way to tell myself, this is done. It wasn't about chasing likes, it wasn't about feeding the algorithm, or even really growing my following. I just made each Instagram post a finish line so that I could start the next race. That line could just as easily have been showing the drawing to a family member, for example, or hanging up the drawings in the house somewhere. The point is to know that you finished something and use that to motivate yourself to start the next one so that you can build a body of work that keeps getting better. I did that on Instagram, which luckily did work out for me. Models always share any work I do of them, and the life drawing community as a whole that I found on there has always been supportive. This gave me a lot more confidence in my work, and I saw leaps in progress that I'd never seen before. But that wouldn't have happened without implementing this idea of aiming for 70% instead of perfection and getting myself to finish piece after piece after piece.